we had another weekend of college wrestling go down as conference duels start to heat up. And with it, down goes another number one ranked wrestler at 125 pounds, with Anthony Noto losing to the 29th ranked wrestler from Harvard. And I don't remember a weight class in recent history that is as crazy or wild as 125 pounds is this year. And I know I say at every video that there are 20 guys that could win this weight class, but I'm truly dumbfounded by the chaos of 125 pounds. I mean, there really are 20 to 25 guys that could end up at the top of the podium at the national tournament. And I know some wrestlers are more likely than others, but this weight is truly wide open for anyone to go and take it. But there was a moment in time for a couple days when it looked like maybe 125 wasn't going to be as wide open, as there were rumors that Dayton Fix was going to drop from 133 pounds down to 125 pounds. And if he went down to 125 pounds, he would be the clear favorite to win the weight class. But Dayton kind of squashed those rumors when he did an interview on the Clash of Combat podcast stating,
"Well, I'm going down to 125, but not to the Olympic trials." So,
okay.
Not during the college season, but
Okay.
I will be going 57 kilos at the Olympic trials, though.
And I personally think Dayton Fix should consider going down to 125 pounds because he would be the clear favorite at that weight class to win the national title. Now, I believe Dayton is certainly capable, and I do think he can win the 133 pound weight classes, but let's be honest, one of these weight classes doesn't have Vito Arujau. And I know you got to consider the team here because Dayton going down to 125 would force Troy Spratley out of the lineup. But we're talking about an individual national championship here. Oklahoma State's last NCAA champ was AJ Ferrari in 2001. And before him, it was Dean Heil in 2017. So while I do realize Dayton going to 25 could potentially weaken the Oklahoma State lineup, as a fan, I would much rather get a individual national champ and lose a couple spots in the team rankings. For example, if getting an individual national champ meant falling from 6th to 10th, I would probably take that trade. But I would rather have the team place top 3 at the national tournament and win a team trophy versus an individual national champ. So maybe that's why they ultimately decided to keep Dayton at 133 pounds, because Oklahoma State does have a team that could win a team trophy in March. All right, so now let's move on to the biggest duel of the weekend, Iowa versus Nebraska. And this is a perfect example of why it is so difficult to beat Iowa. Because even when they lost a bunch of seniors, they lost Max Murin, they lost Spencer Lee, they lost Jacob Warner, and they lost even more due to the gambling infractions, they still put together a solid team and they find a way to beat a really good Nebraska team. And the first thing that jumps out to me at this duel is the performance of Drake Ayala. I mean, he looked dang good in this match. If Drake Ayala wrestles like this throughout the rest of the year, this version of Drake Ayala will place top 4 at the national tournament. And coming into this year, I thought Drake Ayala could take a pretty big jump in performance. As a true freshman, he looked really good on the mat, and then he had his red shirt here. But then he started out his season with that weird loss to Brandon Kaylor of Oregon State. But he's really turned on his offense. He's focusing on attacking. This is the Drake Ayala that I thought we'd see coming into this season. So if he continues at this pace, he's definitely going to place very high at nationals and is obviously one of those guys who can win a national title. At these lower weights, I really favor the wrestler that has a higher attack rate. And right now, Drake Ayala has one of the higher attack rates at all of the 125 pound weight class. And that takes us right into Real Woods, whose offense is also looking really sharp and had a very, very controlled win over Brock Hardy. And this kind of puts me in a weird spot because when I watch Jesse Mendez, I think 141 pound national champ. And then I watch Real Woods and think, well, he's going to be the 141-pound national champ. So I kind of get this flip-flop. It's probably recency bias to whoever I've most recently watched, but I really think it's between Jesse Mendez and Real Woods at this point. And because I just watched Real Woods, I got to favor him right now to win the national title because he really dominated one of the best wrestlers at this weight class in Brock Hardy. And then the next weight class I want to talk about is 157 pounds. Jared Franek gets a really nice win over Peyton Robb, and I was somewhat surprised to see Peyton Robb lose this match. I was always really high on Peyton Robb ever since I watched him kind of control Ed Scott early last year, really put on a tough ride, really get to the legs and get attacks going at will. But for some reason in this match, he just wasn't quite the same wrestler that we normally see. He really didn't try to ride Franek too hard. And then at the end of the third period, he kind of gassed out and he just didn't have much in the tank to try to get that escape with only 30 seconds left. I will say, I don't think my perception has changed too much of Peyton. I think if Jared Franek and Peyton Robb wrestle again, I'd probably pick Peyton again. But Jared Franek has passed every single test this point into the year. So looks like he's taken a little bit of a step in that Iowa room. He's really pushing to win that national title in March. All right, and that leads us to 197 pounds. Zach Glazier majors Silas Allred. Now, Zach hadn't wrestled anyone super tough up to this point in the year. He lost to AJ Ferrari at the Soldier Salute, but this match really shows that Zach is the real deal. He beat Silas Allred by a major decision 11-2, the same Silas Allred that beat national champ Max Dean 2 times. So maybe in hindsight, we shouldn't be that surprised that he was able to wrestle AJ Ferrari to an overtime match. But then you also have those matches where he wrestled fringe qualifiers and he only beat him by a point or two. But it's obvious now he's the real deal and he's going to be a guy you're going to have to watch out for throughout the rest of the season. And a maybe still outside looking in, but an option, a guy who potentially could end up on the podium in March. All right, and lastly, I want to talk about Nash Hutmacher, or the polar bear, they call him. And there was a lot of hype of him wrestling, and that balloon has kind of deflated pretty quickly. Now, I will say I was a little bit skeptical. Obviously, it's a cool story that he played football for Nebraska, and now he's coming back around to wrestle. Pretty awesome story. Was hoping he would be the real deal, and he is tough, but I was a little skeptical for 2 reasons. First off, yeah, I know he was undefeated in high school and won 4 state titles and was the #1 ranked heavyweight in his recruiting class. But high school wrestling is not college wrestling. Very often, the number 22 ranked big board guy or the number 17 ranked big board guy in a recruiting class will come into college and he'll never even crack the starting lineup and you kind of never hear from him again. That's pretty normal because guys get better. College wrestling is substantially different than high school wrestling. Number 2 is, and this is probably the main thing, he hasn't wrestled in 3 or 4 years. And so for him to come off the football field after not wrestling for 3 years with only a few weeks practice and come out and win against national qualifiers, in my opinion, was always a tall task. Now, the disclaimer I'll give is, in the next 3 months, he's the kind of guy who can get a lot better really quickly. He's obviously very athletic, very strong. So as he kind of gets back on the mat, get a month or 2 of mat time, he could drastically improve. Is he going to win a national title? No. Is he going to end up on the All-American podium? Probably not. But he could qualify and he can make things interesting. So it's a story that I'm going to keep following, but probably got to pump the brakes on him making the All-American podium and being this great new heavyweight in the weight class. That's it for this week. Subscribe.